Welcome to the finals of the ESL Open Cup 217 for the European server. Game number 1 in today's best of 5 series. It takes place on the map Equilibrium and spawning right here in the top right hand corner. Playing with the red Protoss pieces, we have none other than MaxPax's. Obviously, we have MaxPax's. Whenever there's a Protoss player in any grand finals over the last couple of months, it seems to be either Hero or MaxPax's. But since this is the European equivalent and Hero doesn't play in the EU events, it can only really be Mr. MaxPax's. His opponent, though, this time around, playing with the blue Terran SCVs. It's not Clem, but it's none other than Spirit. Recently, we've had, a few times at the very least, we've had the Clem versus Raynor grand finals of old, once again showing up in the ESL Weekly, but apparently not this time around. Not entirely sure if both Raynor and Clem just simply didn't decide to sign up, or maybe they got eliminated. I mean, kind of difficult for me to look up without spoiling myself for results. I, of course, have a bunch of replays that I want to go ahead and cast, and if I look up the results of a tournament bracket, obviously I will be spoiling myself, so I'd prefer not to. Anyways, we've got ourselves a good old Nexus first. Really, MaxPax's? Okay. So look, MaxPax's, I mean, it's after a gateway, but it's a nice and early Nexus right over here at, like, what, 17 supply or so? MaxPax's, if you talk about any of the man's real weaknesses right now. So in case you're a little out of the loop, MaxPax's is considered to be the highest ranked Protoss player in the world, although with a little asterisk right next to it because he does not play offline tournaments. Anyways, he is incredibly good right now. He's certainly on fire. The one criticism that I've had of him over the last few months is that sometimes he's a little bit predictable. So he tends to do the same thing over and over and over again. And obviously, if you are the best at doing the same thing over and over and over again, maybe it's not that big of a problem. Players like, for example, Innovation and whatnot have been very successful throughout their careers, playing pretty much the same strategies every single time. However, this is a different day and age, right? No disrespect whatsoever towards Innovation, but I don't think that that sort of playstyle really works well in 2024 SC2, nor do I think it works particularly well for Protoss. Protoss in general does have a little bit of that, haha, gotcha now factor, right? Like, they do quite a few of these tricks and tech switches and whatnot to try and throw the opponent off. So MaxPax's has been playing the same strategies over and over and over again for quite a while, but him going for a nice quick gold, gotta say, I like it. Yeah, when this man starts cheesing again regularly, I think we are gonna see him go to a new height, and he's already, you know, currently, at least on La Liga, like, the highest ranked Protoss in the world. Alrighty, so Scoutless opener here for Mr. Spirit, who recently, by the way, joined Team Na'Vi. I'm not entirely sure if I've casted games of his over the last month or two. I think it's been a couple months at this point. Anyways, he is now part of one of the biggest esports organizations in the world, which is pretty sick. Looks like the Zealot will be sacrificed, but what he really wants... Okay, nice movement right there, nice micro. What he really wants is that Adept. Adept does shade into the main base, and it's gonna start being a bit of a nuisance. Anything, honestly, to just buy time, alright? That is ultimately what MaxPax's is really looking for right now. Buy as much time as possible, try to keep these Terran units off your back, and try to get that golden mineral line to give you the income you truly need. And again, a second Adept shades in. Trading at this point is all you're really looking for. Alrighty. So, it's gonna be Cyclones on the back of this right here for Spirit. In the meantime, we have a Robo facility over at the Golden Minerals, but I was gonna say, I thought I saw a Twilight Council on the production tab. MaxPax's going for his beloved Blink upgrade. One of the reasons why Blink Stalker openers are as popular as they are is because players like MaxPax's make them look utterly broken. He's very good at just simply winning games straight up with just a bunch of Blink Stalkers. So I think that's the plan as well in this particular game. The thing is, right, when you go for the gold base this quickly and you manage to get away with it, I mean, so far at the very least, there's nothing Spirit has really done about it. If you manage to get away with it, the Stalker all-in will just simply hit even harder, right? Now, we're currently at how many gateways? It is going to be 4 gateways in total, it looks like, so this is certainly going to be a very committed attack. Plus, these Marines, they don't achieve anything. Lovely start right here for MaxPax's. Yep. These Marines, by the way, just decided to soak up as much energy out of that shield battery as possible because there was nowhere for them to really run. Maybe the Cyclones going around the site. Maybe they can throw MaxPax's off for just a little bit, but it's risky though, because losing those units for free I mean, they're not the most expensive Terran unit in the book, but there's no denying that they aren't entirely cost-free. Anyways, Prism going across, Stalkers running as well. How many siege tanks are we on? Yeah, 0. So we've got one coming up right now. We have a bunker, rather, right next to the barracks inside of the main base. Additional production coming. Okay, shield battery over here. Cyclones over at the third base. Gonna have to do a little bit of multitasking here, but it looks like the Hellions are gonna be dealt with, and I think the Stalker here, maybe a second Stalker is gonna be a necessity. Yeah, it is gonna be important. In the meantime, though, the Stalkers have already arrived, the big group of them inside of the main base, and like I said, there's only a single siege tank available at this point in time. Second tank is coming, but honestly, I don't think you really care about it, no. You just block the siege tank from getting into the main base, or at the very least you try and prevent it and just kill as many SCVs as possible. I mean, I think that's game. Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. MaxPax's is so good when it comes to keeping these Stalkers alive. Look at him microing here. So many SCVs have already fallen. Another tank, I guess, will be coming up in about 30 seconds from now. At the very least, the cloak benches in the main base are putting in some work, but if you can't deal with the main army, you can't really stay in the game. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Hecate. Now, of course, there are a couple different ways to open up as both Terran as well as Protoss. Broadly speaking, though, Terran can make a variety of units in the early game that it's quite difficult to really quantify, right? We've seen a lot of, like, for example, Widowmine drop play. I guess that is the go-to gold standard at the moment. But the way that the Terran macro cycles work is that you can essentially make any unit within the first 5 minutes of the game, all the way from Marines up to battle cruisers, right? And generally speaking, Terrans seem to go for whatever they like at any given moment. Obviously, there is a bit of structure to it, but there's no denying that that variety is what makes it so difficult for Protoss, and I guess for Zerg as well, to really figure out exactly what the best way to open up is. So, broadly speaking, usually in the earlier stages of the game, it's going to be Protoss who will be on the back foot, who will have to defend. Broadly speaking, there are two ways for Protoss to open up right now in this matchup. There's the Blink Stalker approach that we saw in the previous game, and then there's also that good old Phoenix style. Every Protoss player seems to have a preference. MaxPax's preference certainly is Blink Stalker. You can say the same thing for Hero. In my mind, both of them are the best Protosses in the world, so you'd imagine that, well, pretty much everybody tries to copy it, and yet both Hero and MaxPax seem to be able to get more value out of their Stalkers and decision-making than the other high-ranking Protoss players in the world. Phoenix openers in general, it just feels so flimsy, right? Like, you kind of try to go from Phoenixes into Colossi usually, but it leaves you very, very exposed, and Stalkers just feel a little bit more rigid. But, of course, if you're forced to deal with, say, for example, I mean, flying units in general, it can be kind of difficult to... Say, for example, there's like a, I don't know, a medevac with two Widowmines just sort of chilling in the corner, right? Or right over here at the bottom. You kind of have to always keep an eye out on it. With Phoenix openers, those sort of build orders from the Terran are super easy to shut down. Anyways, so far, nothing out of the ordinary. Cybercore at this point is done. We're gonna have to see what sort of tech MaxPax is gonna be going for here in just a moment, and judging by the gas, I think it will be a Twilight Council. You would have to save up for a long while right now if he wants to go into a Stargate. There it is. It is indeed going to be a Twilight Council. This will be confirmed right now as well by Mr. Spirit. Confirmed. If you go back to my first StarCraft casts that are up on my YouTube channel, I used to pronounce every single English V as an F. So rather than, you know, saying, I don't know, yeah, now apparently I use V's as F's instead. This is still actually something that trips me up every once in a while. It's funny how that works. So in Dutch, we don't really have much of a difference in the pronunciation of that particular letter. You can get away with calling every single V an F. And I used to think that that was the case in every language, but... Or, I mean, every language. But it turns out, no. Can't really do that. Adept. Super dead. Yeah, she's dead. But at the very least, this does now give him the heads up that this is going to be a Widowmine-based opener. It's only a single one, though, as we have a Cyclone immediately on the back of it. Alrighty. This means that MaxPax gets to do whatever he likes for the foreseeable future, at least, and what he apparently likes to do is going to go into that Blink research. I guess technically you could also go into, for example, Charge or Glaive the Depths, but both of those build orders are considered to be very mediocre at best. Obviously, whenever I talk about quote-unquote viable build orders, it's the viable build orders that are in like the S tier category, you know what I mean? Like generally speaking at this level, you will only ever see builds that are considered to be the very best builds, although sometimes you can catch your opponent off guard with a strategy they may not have seen in a while. Alrighty, Blink is going to finish up within about a half minute or so from now though. At this point, Protoss doesn't have a lot of stuff yet, but all of their production has finished. Nice body blocking right there with the Stalker, preventing that Widow Mine from really moving any further forward. It is going to try and step forward a little bit. Probe here, pulled away, actually gets the final hit in. Shield battery here as well. No, actually just a regular pylon to try and block these Terran units from getting in. In the meantime, there was some aggression as well on the other side of the map with a few SCVs going down. Honestly, perfect defense. Blink at this point is done. Can he get the Oh, the Prism? No, the Medevac. Can he get the Terran Warp Prism? Imagine if Medevacs could warp in a bunch of Marines and Marauders. That'd be insane. Not quite the case, though. Atrocious beginning right here, honestly, for Spirit, though. Yeah, you can micro your butt off here, but you gotta be so careful. Obviously, he did get a couple units, but he threw away a lot more, and again, this is cutting into his siege tank production. Bunker is not yet done. Okay, nice pickup, though. Beautiful control right there by Spirit. If you pick up the units before the Stalker attack connects, it does not actually deal damage, but obviously, you're on a razor's edge. This entire build, though, feels like it's on a razor's edge. Third Nexus coming up at about the 5-minute mark. Do we have a Prism available? Yes, we do. Prism comes across right now as well. We've got ourselves the good old 4 gateways. Just like in game number 1. I think we're going to try and see if we can deal some damage by getting into the main base, for example. I mean, you can also try and hit him head on. A little dangerous. I mean, this is a lot of Stalkers. One Stalker leading the charge, ready to take a hit. Ooh, it looks like Spirit was actually anticipating a blink into the main base as well, just like myself. Look at that pickup micro right here with that Prism, trying to just, oh my lord. Trying to blink and I guess double blink here. Has he lost the Stalker? Has he lost the Stalker? He's lost one. I think that may have been to the initial aggression though. Or maybe it was actually a little bit ago when the siege tank first fired. Now there's another tank available, and now certainly a few of those Stalkers are gonna, well, maybe not. Yeah, no, a couple of them will die, but I think they're going down in favor of winning the game. And that is a trade that MaxPax's will be more than happy to make. Yeah, so this is what happens when you're not Clem, right? This is what happens when you're maybe not Hero Marine. Well, Spirit is incredibly good, and I would pretty much put him in the same bracket as, for example, a Big Gate. Margin for error against Stalker openers, absolutely tiny. Yes, 4-gate Blink, not as popular as it once used to be, because a lot of players started being really good at holding it, but it is something that MaxPax's can still just whip out, and there it is, 2-0 advantage for the Protoss. Oceanborn is going to be our next map. Okay. It's hard to even really say exactly what makes some players so good at microing and others not so much. Right? It's not like Spirit is a bad microer or anything along those lines, right? He can beat up 99.9% of the people watching this video within 5 minutes, right? Just by having like a medevac and 2 cyclones, right? Like he can... What exactly sets the top of the line players apart from the guys just below that? I guess you can ask that question with essentially any sport, any competition. What exactly makes Max Verstappen so much better in Formula 1? Well, I guess in that particular sport, you can argue that the cars that Red Bull has currently are maybe a little bit better, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like, why exactly are certain athletes at the professional level still able to look significantly better than players that are also professionals? How come Maru and Clem look so much better than pretty much all the other Terrans out there? What exactly makes Serral so good at Zerg? It's hard to pinpoint. It really is just those very small marginal improvements. Obviously with Protoss now in particular, maybe it's a little bit easier to pinpoint than say, for example, Serral. Because Protoss in the early game always feels to me like they have literally like 4 units available, right? And staying alive when you have 4 units is very tricky. It's very easy to mess it up. And that micro really carries you. Like, you play super greedy, you try to make as little of an army as possible so you can get a maximum economy and infrastructure. And ultimately, that allows you to warp in so many things, right? So it's not even necessarily just the Stalker control that we just watched, where it's really good, the Blink and the Prism, they work together brilliantly. But it's also the amount of greed that MaxPax is able to get away with. He squeezes out as little army as possible whilst, well, producing as much of a economy and then ultimately a infrastructure as possible too. By the way, in game number 1 and 2 of this series, he had a Nexus, like a third Nexus, twice around. So it wasn't a complete all-in. I would call that like a dedicated pressure, right? It needs to deal some damage to justify going for that many gateways, because technically you can take the third Nexus earlier off of just 2 gateways while still staying alive. So you have to make up for all of those Stalkers and the delay on the third, but it isn't really meant as like a game-winning attack, right? Imagine if that Nexus was never built, then suddenly the game-winning push, it is even stronger. This is mostly just a distraction here, trying to keep those Terran units at home, while once again, by the way, we're going into the Twilight Council. Okay. I think MaxPax is properly feeling it now, though. The man's warmed up. There's gateway number 2. How many are we going to produce this time around? Anywhere from 2 to 4 gateways is the norm. Very commonly we see 3. Although that's kind of like a middle-of-the-road approach, you know? In my mind, MaxPax and guys like Hero aren't really middle-of-the-road kind of players. They tend to, and maybe that's another characteristic, they tend to go for the more extreme variant of builds. Alrighty. So, once again, good old Blink. Every chrono boost will be accounted for. A robo facility coming up right now as well. There is a gateway number 3. Completing this wall off, at least as long as the Stalker over here is in the right spot. No Terran unit is going to be able to just run in. Although, well, we do have a medevac opener this time. No shenanigans, by the way, here with too many Cyclones here. Yeah, we're going to go straight into siege tanks. So Spirit is done taking chances. He's maybe gonna bring one of those Widow Mines across the map, but he will try and play this as safely as he can. Scouting right now for a third Nexus. At this point, he sees the lack of it. So he must realize that something may be a little off. A robo facility coming up. Up to right now, we're at 3 gateways. No, we're actually up to 4 gateways already. I was gonna say, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. 2 plus 2 is 4, guys. Welcome to my educational YouTube videos. Hit like if you want to hear more math, or me, you know, getting math wrong more commonly, really. Alrighty, so here we go again. Rinse and repeat. This time around, though, Spirit has been preparing. He is going to send a bunch of units towards the other side of the map, which I do quite like, but it's also a bit risky, right? He wants to try and force the Protoss' attention in multiple angles at once, but obviously that means that his bases aren't quite as well protected, although this does look pretty tight to me. Ooh, this is a supply block? There's a supply block! Oh no, Spirit! Oh, there's a supply block. Well, MaxPax has made no such mistake. These siege tanks are so pivotal that if you have one, I guess in this particular case, like half a siege tank less. Oh no, I think that was the Raven. Yeah, Raven also falls. I think this is a disaster. Well, the medevac drop at the very least is going to put in a little bit of pressure. Quick pull right there on the probes, whilst microing again inside of the main base of the Terran player. Okay, now there is a single siege tank available. Second one just about to roll out of the factory. Drop in the main base is being handled, it looks like, as well. And ultimately, this is going to be pushed back. Medevac is also going to have to pay the price. So far, only 1 Stalker has gone down. MaxPax microing both sides of the battle just fine, even though I have a hard time keeping track of exactly where the engagements are going on. A couple Stalkers will be splitting themselves off the pack. Okay, it looks like Spirit is actually holding on reasonably well now. Love this Observer, by the way. Yeah, Spirit not so much. Third siege tank pops out. All of these tanks alive, double bunker at the front. That is going to make this game a whole lot easier. Third Nexus, by the way, in the meantime, just about to finish up. Okay, MaxPax going around the site this time around, trying to bypass those siege tanks altogether, as well as the bunkers. Gets a couple supply depots, but it's hard to really commit from anything or anything from here. He does have those stalkers that were warped in defensively now as well. He does have those showing up on the other side of the map. He's doubling down. Yeah, he's making probes again, but there's no forts yet as far as I saw. No forts yet, so he is making new workers. Oh, we're gonna do some double microing now inside of the natural and the main base. Is that the plan? Maybe that is the plan. Anyways, he is going to commit. One siege tank goes down. Second siege tank in a similar amount of trouble too. Couple stalkers though did have to pay the price. I think about 3 or so of them. Problem is we do not have Stimpack even remotely done yet. These Marines do not yet get any improvements for at least another minute. And that's painful. Yeah, why is it that some players make basic units look so much better than other players? It kind of looks like sometimes Serral's Zerglings start with 1-1, right? You can say the same thing for Clem's Marines and Bjorn's Marines, maybe. He's so good at controlling them. This kind of looks like the Stalker is a better unit than when I play with it. So he still has those 2 groups of units going around. He's going into charge, he's going into +1, he's built up to pretty much 3 base economy. Yeah, MaxPax's, when he's on fire, when he's feeling it, is an absolute monster. So now Stimpack is finally available. But that is, yeah, as pretty much every single Terran unit is already dead. So even though you do get that power spike there eventually, and the Marines can use Stimpack once more, every time you use Stimpack when you don't have Medivacs available, it's gonna cost you dearly. GG is cold. And MaxPax's wins the ESO Open Cup 217. 3-0 in the grand finals. Not bad.